Hi there, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for this APMG International webinar in partnership with In Progress Design Labs. Today we're going to be talking about a concept called design thinking, which may be new to some, but it's been becoming increasingly popular amongst organisations as they try to drive more benefits and value from their investments in projects, programs and other initiatives, and reducing the waste that goes with those activities along the way. My name is Mark Constable. I'll be your host and moderator. And it's a pleasure to be joined by two presenters for the session. So the first is colleague Richard Farrow, who's the CEO here at APMG. And we're also joined by Rafael Shani, who's the lead author of the DTMethod, which we're going to be talking about a lot today during the session. Just a bit of housekeeping from me before I pass you on to the presenters. So the first thing to note is we are recording the session, and everyone that's registered will receive a follow-up email from me not too long after we conclude the session. That would include a link to the recording and any other useful bits of information that we'll put in that email, so do look out for that. You're welcome to submit questions at any stage throughout the presentation, so you should see on your GoToWebinar control panel an option to type your questions in. I'll be keeping a close eye on that section, and when we get towards the end, we'll see if we can cover as many of those as we can. And last but not least, we welcome any feedback. So we'd love to know what you thought of the session today, and if there's any suggestions for how we can deliver them better, that's always very useful. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to our presenters. So first is Richard. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Mark. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. The agenda is pretty simple, and that is that we waste a lot of money on delivering projects, and we need to find another way of actually delivering projects in a more effective way to cut down waste. I've had the pleasure of working with Rafael now for about 3 years and helping him refine and bring to market a concept he developed in Design Labs called design thinking, or in actual fact, design thinking method. So it's really bringing these two things together and to share some thoughts with you, quite a high level in terms of the money we waste on projects, and then why I think DTMethod, design thinking method, is a way of actually getting a better delivery of our programs and projects. So we're very fortunate to have Rafael with us because he's delivered this product in a number of companies, and he has an interesting case study to share with us. It's a case study about a physical project rather than a product development, which people might find surprising, but it just demonstrates the versatility of DTMethod. So moving on. So before we start, here's a question for everybody, and there is a poll that Mark is running. How much do you think is spent annually on projects? Global number, and just to get a feel for where this community thinks that balance is. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to ponder the question and make your selection.
Got most votes in. I'll just give it another couple of moments. It's actually looking like a three-way tie before the between the three final options, Richard. So between 110 and 25 trillion.
Okay, so people are in the trillions. Okay, thank you very much. So moving on. So global GDP is estimated to be about $94 trillion, and this is a number that I got from that website, Global GDP 2021. So you might argue about the odd trillion here or there, but it's fair to say that global GDP is about sort of $90 trillion. So if we move on, Mark. Annual global project spend. Now, nobody really has an accurate number of this. So here are some numbers that I've sort of pulled from a variety of sources. Infrastructure investment around the world is probably going to be, or was about $9 trillion in 2025. IT spending about $4 trillion in 2020. People talk about construction, $14 trillion in 2025. And clearly with some of the stuff going on in the world today, even more money is going to have to be spent on infrastructure and development activities. So, I would like to suggest that total project spend is around 20 to 25 trillion, or put it another way, 25% of global GDP. So feel free if you want to challenge me on that number, but for the purpose of this webinar, purpose of this conversation, just think about total project spend of about 25% of global GDP, something of that order, give or take. So moving on, Mark. Yeah, and then you look at what are the measures of success of all these projects, and there's lots of reports out there. None of the reports sort of support the findings of another report. They all take their metrics from a wide range of sources. So, just pulling together some statistics to sort of shape the argument. Stanford and Berkeley reckon about 92% of startups fail. A lot of people talk about, running a startup as a project. So the majority of those, don't really succeed. The Standish Group have been doing reports on IT projects probably for the last 20, if not 30 years. And their view is that the majority of IT projects fail. The numbers seem to be variable, but projects are closed or abandoned. So, they also come up with a view about 31% of the initiatives are successful. So not a total failure, but are delivering some benefit to the organization. PMI on their annual reports has shown that the improvement of project management is improving. And they're now saying 30 to 35% of projects are successful, which is an increase on what they were reporting, I think, 5, 10, 15 years ago. And Rafael is Polish, and a piece of work from Poland suggests that 78% of change projects fail to achieve the assumed goals. So generally, as a profession, we know that the majority of what we do does not deliver the benefits that we set out to deliver. So if you move on, Mark. So if 70% of projects do not deliver their expected benefits, then that's $15 trillion is wasted every year through projects that don't deliver an acceptable outcome. It clearly can't be sustainable, even though it's been going on for many, many years. And I think in part, some of that is avoidable. We know the reasons why projects don't succeed, but we don't seem to be able or willing to do anything about it. And I'd like to suggest that DTMethod could actually help us improve the delivery of those projects. And maybe it's another approach we can apply to try to get better value from that investment that we make. So moving on, Mark. So another little question for you. There's a series of criteria that we're going to show in a Slido poll. And I'd just like you to rank them in order of importance that you think is going to lead to greater success of the project. So what are the criteria that you believe is going to deliver is most important, most influential regarding project success? So if you could just try and join the Slido poll using the number on the screen, and then we'll look at the options that will be available to you.
May need to give a few moments to folks to look at the poll, and then we can look at the results.
Are people voting, Mark? Are we getting some?
There are some answers, great.
Should we move on?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, one moment. Get back to the slides.
So the poll suggests clear vision and objectives, ownership as being sort of the top two issues that we had there. So if you can move on. So these were the options we had. This is the research that's come out again from the Standish group. And interestingly, we had clear statement of requirements. Ownership was quite low, but they did have user involvement as being quite high. Executive management support, which I think came in 4th place. And about 30 years ago, a chap called Martin Cobb, who was out in Canada, said that we know why projects fail and we know how to prevent them failing, but why do they still fail? Yeah, and as we could see from the poll, we know the things that we should be doing, we know the things that are important. So if those are the things that are important and we are actually doing those, then why are our projects still failing? And the interesting thing with it for me is it is all about the stakeholder engagement, user involvement, executive management support, clear statement of requirements. Actually about 50, they add up to about 50% of the 100 points that were allocated in the Standish report. So if we can actually do more to involve the users, if we can do more to get executive management support in place, and if we can do more to drive the statement of requirements, then I would suggest that our projects will be more successful. And that is the thrust of the argument, that by focusing on those 3 top criteria, then we should be able to improve what we're doing. So moving on. Yeah, and Antonio Neto Rodriguez is quite an author at the moment, quite prolific in terms of writing around projects and trying to improve the whole profession of project management. Yeah, so this is a latest view of the reasons, and Antonio's view is, the organization structure doesn't really align with what people are trying to do in terms of delivery of projects. And he argues the world is now moving towards a project-orientated world. We lack governance in terms of supporting that strategic execution. And organizations lack focus. People try to do too many projects. So these are problems I think that are quite common in many organizations. So his argument, based on his research, based on his conversations, is less is more in projects and project management. This is an outrageous statement, but it's from Antonio, that most organizations could cancel up to 80% of their projects in an organization and nothing would really happen. Now that is a really frightening thought, that an organization is actually working on things that is not going to help it move forward strategically, that it's wasting that time and effort, wasting that resource, wasting that capability within the team on things that would actually deliver very little value to that organization. And so if you put all these things together, everything that we're doing in the profession for project management is leading us to not really deliver the benefits that people are expecting. And it's inconceivable that other professions would put up with that. But this has been going on for the last 50 years, 30 years. It's still being found today. And we're not really doing anything differently to try to make a difference. Antonio's point, though, is that what a great thing to be involved in, a project that makes a difference, somewhere where we can be more inclusive, we can make a better impact on the organization, that we're actually motivated and inspired by the work that we're doing every day. And those of us on the call who have worked on some projects that have made a difference, how great is that feeling when you're working in a collaborative way and you're really making some real progress and you're making a difference? So my suggestion is, let's try something different to deal with these things. And coming back to that wasted money, even if you don't believe 25% and 25% equals to sort of $15 trillion, just think of a lower number. Is it $10 trillion? Is it $5 trillion? Because some of those things may have delivered some value to the organization, but it is a phenomenal waste that we are actually seeing in what we're doing around projects and programs. So let's move on, Mark. Everybody's seen this, cost of change 101. The decisions that we make at the outset, they can be as variable as we like because we made no commitment. We can discuss options, we can discuss alternatives, we can discuss scheduling. We can do lots and lots of things at the outset by, if you like, I suppose these days, building a virtual project. What would be the impact of actually doing something? But we don't spend enough time, in my view, we don't spend enough time right at the outset in actually thinking through what our options are, getting the right people in the room to do that work, to really think what's the benefit of this project or initiative and how are we going to deliver it. Once we've started to make some of those decisions and we're starting to commit and put people in to do the work, then clearly the cost of change goes up and it starts to grow exponentially once we get into the delivery phase. And again, we've all seen this, and anyone turns around and says, well, I don't know why we're doing this. It was a weak business case, it was weak definition, it lacked definition, and so on and so forth. So my suggestion is we need to do something right at the beginning as part of that project definition and to clarify that what we are going to do is going to make a real significant benefit to the organization through our activities. Moving on. So we should include design thinking in project definition. Now design thinking has been around for a number of years. I think I first read about design thinking probably 15, 20 years ago in some papers from IDEO, the design organization in the US. And it's actually defined as a fast approach to designing new projects, processes, and services. And there are several models that you can look at on design thinking. My view of what currently exists around design thinking is they're in isolation. They're only part of the process, and they're not documented in a way that is necessarily repeatable, scalable, and can be used by a wide range of organizations and a wide range of individuals. And what we're talking about today is a design thinking method that Rafael has spent a lot of time and effort on researching and actually codifying as an approach. So moving on. Design thinking works. There are reports out from McKinsey looking at design thinking and the impact it has on organizations. Now I accept this is around using design thinking to look at designer products and what have you. But their suggestion is that organizations that apply design thinking achieve significant growth increase in compared to other companies. So the research suggests that projects don't deliver the benefits that we set out to do, and the majority of projects fail. And the research suggests that involving a technique like design thinking over a period of time can deliver consistently better results from the organizations that apply it compared with organizations that don't apply it. Now, I know the world isn't black and white, and I know I'm taking an extreme view by saying, projects generally don't deliver and design thinking generally does deliver. But as a hypothesis, if it is fair to say that design thinking does make a difference and it makes a difference consistently, then what about applying design thinking into the front end of a project to see whether it can also make a significant difference to our ability to identify the right projects to deliver and deliver those projects more effectively for the benefits that we set out to achieve. It might be a stretch of the imagination, but that's the hypothesis, that's the suggestion that I'm sharing with you today, and I think we should try to do something about. So much so that we have a competition at the end of this presentation where we're prepared to put some money up to allow people to try design thinking in their organization. That's how strongly I feel about the value that design thinking, and in particular design thinking method, DT method, can help in the delivery of projects. Moving on. So what is DT method? It's a fully integrated proven methodology As a business, APMG work with a wide range of methodologies, so we understand methodologies, the whole concept of bringing these things together. It has those 5 components. I'm not going to go through them, but it is guidance talking about roles, talking about rules. It specifies some tools, and it actually has a process flow. Interestingly, it's the first methodology that I've seen that it's actually got one approach if you're working as a remote team online, as a virtual approach, and a slightly different approach if you're actually working physically co-located in the office. So it can be applied depending upon whether the team is physically co-located or it's a distributed team, and it is all documented. Moving on. Yeah, this won't surprise people. Yeah, here are some simple sort of 7 rules around DTMethod. It is all about the factors that we spoke about earlier. It's about a focus on people. It's about involving the team to make sure you got the right people in the team, in the room, talking about what needs to be done. It's based on evidence. So, yeah, if you want to make an argument, find the evidence to support the argument. It's incremental and it's iterative, and you've actually got to be involved. You know, we've used DTMethod to develop some things within APMG, working with Rafał, and it is quite intense on the need to think about something, go and prove it, come back, share those views with the team. So this continuous learning approach is built into it. It is an interesting method of actually helping to define what it is we're going to do and to look at some solutions. And I think now we have a case study, Rafał. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. It was very interesting what you said, and it's really, when I was preparing my part of presentation, it was really revealing what you prepared, what you found about the global waste. And now DTMethod, when we developed DTMethod, we wanted to help organization in their project management and in developing the products of the project, which will help them providing better value, bigger value. But right now, it's not only about providing value, it's about not wasting time, money, not consuming people power, engagement, motivation, and yes, let's start with that point.
And we need to switch to your slides now, don't we, Rafał? So let's make that seamless as possible.
Okay.
Right, you should be able to share now.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see case study, design thinking in a construction project.
Great, perfect. Okay, so as Richard said at the beginning, I will show you a case study from a construction project because we had a lot of different projects, but design thinking usually is connected to to some challenges which are connected with people, with mostly with human resources, with people engagement. I wanted to show that the design thinking and DTMethod can be used in very different fields, and to show you some benefits of using the design thinking in these fields. We cooperated with a company that is a producer of sweets, and the challenge they faced was the construction of new social and administrative building, which will be used by production and office workers. At the very beginning, long time before we started the design thinking process, the steering committee of this project commissioned the preparation of a construction project for a new building to an architect company, to architects, and they just asked architects to develop the construction plan, construction projects for this building. Now, in the construction project, they should include parts of the building which will be used by production employees. There should be locker rooms, bathrooms, passage between the building and production. And for administrative employees, they have various operational departments, from marketing through selling to the administration. So a lot of different operational departments. And the architectural office prepared a very professional construction project of the building. As you can see on the picture, it looks great. It looks very good. It looks very professional. I'm convinced that they spent a lot of time to develop this project and to hand it to the steering committee of the project in our client's company. However, the architect's project met with very strong resistance in the organization of our client, from employees to managers. People didn't like it. People felt very disappointed when they saw the project. Closely collaborating departments were on different floors. Team rooms were too small. Locker rooms for production workers were spread out over the floors in a way that they didn't understand it. And a lot of small and big parts which were documented in that project didn't fit their needs, didn't fit their imagination, didn't fit what they wanted to have in the new building. And the steering committee, persuaded by the consultants, and we are very glad that they had very good consultants in that way, decided to carry out a design thinking process that will allow the architectural project to be adapted to the needs of employees. We started cooperation with that company when this architectural project was developed, and we started to work with people who didn't like that project, and we were to help the organization to understand the needs of employees and then to prepare some proposals for architectural company to improve their construction project. So that's why we started and what was our starting point of cooperation. In the process, in the design thinking process, there were 27 people engaged. They were recruited from various departments and levels of organizational hierarchy. Among them, there were representatives of steering committee, project manager, members of the management board of the organization, but also employees as well. They were big part of this group of people who were engaged in design thinking process. Over 150 people were involved in stakeholder research and testing prototype solutions during the work. And this is around 20% of people in organization. It's around 20% of people who will use the new building, maybe not in organization because it's a very big corporation, but 20% of people who will use the new building. So we had a lot of data. The engaged designers, I like to name them designers, DT designers, collected a lot of knowledge about needs of people who will use the new building. These 27 people worked with DTMethod for 3 weeks. So the design thinking process lasted 3 weeks. They spent around 16 to 20 hours on the design thinking activities. So it is some time. I don't want to judge if it is a lot of time or not, but I think that results and benefits will show if it was worth it or not. So yeah. So what were results of the work?
Rafael, just before you go on there, just a quick question from a participant. Can you share any additional info about the customer, like the number of employees and perhaps a rough annual revenue to give them a sense of the scale?
I cannot share any very specific data about the company, mostly because the project is still running. We have prepared the very detailed description of the process and our cooperation, but we will publish it when the project will be closed and when the building will be ready to use. So I'm very sorry, I cannot share any very specific data.
No problem. Thanks for
so the first result is that the steering committee accepted 90% of proposals presented by the team who worked on that challenge. The architectural office was asked to prepare a new construction project, taking into account the results of the teams, and they did it. And as a benefit of this result was first very high level of confidence that this is the solution the organization needs. The steering committee had very good knowledge of what they want to develop through the project, what is the product of the project, and it made decision-making process much faster, and they were ready to make faster actions. It saves time and money. And time is money, so it helped them act fast through the project and making decisions faster. The second result were prototypes. Prototypes of the solution are common design thinking processes results. Here on the slide, you can see part of the prototypes. We had a lot of prototypes which were created by the 27 people. And here you can see just 3 images. Each prototype showed 4 floors of the building. So here you don't see even full one prototype, but that's how the result of the design thinking process looks like. 6 of the prototypes were considered as very good prototypes by the organizations, by the organization, by the stakeholders, by the employees. Each prototype was shown to the employees, and they rated the prototypes. They gave feedback. So 6 of the prototypes were rated and considered as very good. And 3 of these 6 prototypes were very positively assessed by almost all departments, almost all the people. And 3 prototypes were handed to the steering committee as the solution, as the proposition of solution which should be taken into account when the architectural office will develop updated constructional project, and it impacted the final construction project mostly. And what is the benefit for organization from this? Because this is what happened and what is impact of this result. The very low resistance of employees to the new project. The people who saw the new updated construction projects were much more happy with it. They had a very positive attitude to the new project. I think that change managers, program managers, project managers know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about low resistance. It is very good situation. This means lower commitment to persuading people to change, lower decreased motivation to work in employees, high commitment during the implementation of change. So it will be much easier to move to the new building and starting work when the building will be ready. Another observable and declared result was a high level of confidence that the project will deliver the right solution. As I said, it was very important for the steering committee, but there is another benefit of that. During the project until now, there was no changes due to the human factor during the project. As a human factor, I understand here, I mean here that someone remembered something or had a great new idea which should be implemented or put into the project. And as you probably know, the later changes are made in the project, the more expensive they are. And the most expensive changes are those that are made after implementation. So it is very expensive thing. The design thinking process results generate the environment in which there is much fewer changes to the project, especially in the late stages of the project. There was an IBM study which shows that when they use design thinking at the beginning of their project, they have a lot fewer changes in the project during developing. It's more time saving, less money consuming, and the project goes fast. So that's another benefit for organization. The fourth result, which I want to share with you, was that employees are confident that the solution will have positive impact on their daily work. They are convinced that localization of departments, number of hot desks, meeting rooms, coffee points, spaces for the work in silence are designed well, and it responds their needs. So when the building will be built, there will be very wide range of benefits for them, for employees, for people. It will help in keeping high work efficiency, greater work comfort, which might be even better, I hope so, than in the old building. And the last results I'm going to talk today are accepted solutions in construction project, because there were some very new things which architectural office and architects didn't think about. They said that they didn't know that it is needed or it may help to the people, and some of the solutions were adapted to the project. The designers invented a solution which will help production workers in the new building, for example, shoot for dirty clothes. So even if they are on different floors, there is one chute which will take all dirty clothes to one place for the company who will wash their clothes. It will be easier to collect them. The number of showers was a very important part of that project. It sounds maybe funny, but it was very important for employees. Dividing the changing room in a more useful way between the floors, so that it will be easier for people to access places which they need to access. And the benefits are, as you can see on the slide, it's greater work comfort, easier management, greater flexibility of the when we think about the structure of people, for example, women-men ratio. So that's what they developed. The project is still running. The building is not built yet, and much more benefits will be seen when people will just move to it and start their daily work in there. And as I said before, I will share with you the description of the project when it will happen. And now I will go back to one thing mentioned earlier by Richard, because Richard said that the success of the project depends on different factors. The three most important factors are user involvement, executive management support, and clear statement of requirements. And as you can see, during the design thinking process, these elements are very well supported. Users are involved in stakeholder research and testing prototyped solutions. Management participates in the process as a sponsor or as a tester as well. And the results of the design thinking process is the clear statement of requirements, because developed prototyped solutions are very clear, they very clearly describes what project should provide to help organization and people generate value from that project.
Thank you very much for the case study, Rafael. Very, very interesting, and it's good to see, how DTMethod made quite a lot of difference. And as you say, it's very simple things, very simple messages, but done up front. I think you got control of the deck, so could you move to the next? Thank you. So I think, as we can see from Rafael's case study, the outcomes of design thinking process are actually critical to delivering the right projects. We get originality up front because people can come up with prototypes. How many projects do we work on where prototyping is actually built into that early stage and then actually put up for consideration by the users? The creation of value, both all the way through the process of actually that early engagement with the workforce in actually making sure they're getting a solution that they want to work with. Better quality solutions, well, time will tell. The project's still underway, but everything points to it being a better quality solution because people have been thinking about how will this affect me, and I get my say into that solution. Therefore, I'm going to be more comfortable, more appropriate when I'm actually enjoying the outcome from that project. Stakeholder involvement should suggest that the solutions are more appropriate, and from what Rafael said here, clearly they are. They're feasible because the committee accepted them pretty quickly when they actually saw them and saw the support they had from the organization. And one would hope that because of all of that, the building functionality is going to be better than it would have been had they not had that overall involvement. Yeah, more impact on the challenge than any other approach because of that early activity and that engagement by all the relevant parties. So yeah, pretty impressive case study on a project that I would not have thought would have been suitable for DTMethod, for design thinking, based on what I'd read about design thinking up until about a year ago. So yeah, fascinating insight into how it can work. So if we could just move to the last few slides. So yeah, what are the benefits? And yeah, I quite like the quote from Einstein that if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about it. Yeah, thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. I think DTMethod actually encapsulates that quite well. You know, the effort that the team need to put into, yeah, let's actually think about what the real problem is and let's go through a process of clarifying the problem and coming up with a solution. Yep, I think it integrates with any project management approach. Every project management approach requires definition, requires documentation up front. So it actually integrates with that to make sure that it's the right focus on what the project team's going to do. I like the way you can engage, 27 people in a period of 3 weeks of about, was that 16 hours in total, Rafael, or is it 16 hours a week?
It was 16 to 20 hours total work for each participant, because we divided them into sub-teams. They worked in 6 to 10 people during one meeting, and each sub-team worked 16 to 20 hours total, in total.
And you come back to this other old thing within projects, isn't it? People would say they haven't got the time to put in that that amount of effort at the outset, but we always find the time and the money to fix things when they don't work as we're getting towards the end of the project. So that investment up front, 3 weeks, 4 or 5 hours a week for a group of people to come up with I would suggest an ideal solution, doesn't seem to be a huge investment in terms of a facility that's going to accommodate somewhere between 500 and 1,000 employees. So, pretty good return on investment, I think. If you involving people in this, then maybe we'll identify unnecessary projects more quickly. One can't actually see the benefit. You can't get the prototypes to work. So maybe the unnecessary projects go through a greater period of iteration before they become worthwhile. Improves focus and success rate, and boy, don't we need to improve the success rate of the projects we deliver. And in the DTMethod, it talks about 4 meetings taking about 16 hours, an elapsed time of about 3 weeks. I would suggest that for any major investment that an organization's contemplating, that's a pretty good investment in time and effort to make sure what that investment is going into is the right thing. So I think there's huge benefits, and DTMethod fits very neatly into projects, and particularly into projects and probably programs. But can we move on to the next slide?
On that point, Richard, there's can I just one further question? So is it correct to say that design thinking used within a PPM, project or program management context, predominantly falls within the stakeholder engagement theme?
I think it is, but I mean, again, we're talking about DTMethod here in projects and programs. I mean, DTMethod can be used for any activity within the organization. But I think I'll come back to Antonio Rodriguez's argument about, the world is moving towards a project-orientated world, and therefore all of those activities will probably end up as being projects. So I think it ties in. And it certainly is at that definition and stakeholder engagement level. Rafael, would you agree with that? Is it at that level, stakeholder engagement, project definition?
Definitely, I agree. Yes, thank you very much, Richard.
So yeah, that's where it fits. So if we could move on. So here you are. Now this is a vote of confidence in the approach. So Mark will explain the rules, but one person on this call will have a facilitated online workshop delivered at no cost to that organization by Rafael or a colleague. So you can actually take a project and they will work with you through the full design thinking process to come up with a solution. 3 people we're prepared to give a 25% discount on any DTMethod course and exam that they take from an accredited APMG training company. We look at the list in a minute. And 5 copies of the Design Thinking book, which can either be a hard copy or a soft copy. Mark, would you like to explain how people sort of put their names in for the prize draw? Can you explain how the process works?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to launch a poll, so everyone should see that on screen now. So it's just because we didn't want to automatically enter everyone in, so we thought we'd get you to let us know which draws you'd like to take part in, so you can choose to take part in all of them. And if for whatever reason you can't complete the poll, just pop something in the chat or a question just to confirm which ones you'd like to take part in, because I'll be able to see that in the reporting afterwards. So yeah, we'll just leave that poll open for a little bit, and we'll conduct the draws straight after the webinar. So within certainly within 24 hours, but hopefully a lot quicker than that, we'll confirm the winners, or get in touch with the winners. And while that poll's still open, there's another question come through. So you've mentioned that design thinking is integrating easily with any methodology. Any experience with the integration with value engineering methodology? The reason for asking is that we have oil and gas project trying to combine these two.
Rafael, do you have any experience with aligning DTMethod with value engineering?
I did not. However, we can contact through the LinkedIn or on my email, and we can try to see how DTMethod might fit the methodology.
So if the person who asks a question is happy for their name to be passed to Rafael, Rafael can get back to them by email, Mark.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So the LinkedIn invite is in place. So.
Perfect.
Okay. While people are still putting their names forward, if we could go on to the next slide. So these are the training companies currently accredited by APMG. So any of these training companies, if you want to take a course with them, if you are lucky enough in the prize, Mark will explain the process, but basically we will reimburse 25% of whatever you paid once you've attended the course and taken the exam. So you have a choice. You do not have to take the training through in progress. You can take the training through any of those organizations that are already accredited to deliver it. And I think the majority, well, I think all of them probably offer an online facilitated course, but up to you to make your decision on what option you want. Are there any other questions, Mark?
No further questions, and I've closed the poll down as well.
And if we could move to the next slide, Rafael. So there's also a 59-minute introduction to DTMethod. It's broken down into about 20 3-minute sections, which take people through the guidance as it is defined in the book. It was done sort of very early on when working on the project to actually bring the book and qualifications into the market. I think there is a UR code or something somewhere, isn't there, Mark?
Yeah, I think we were meant to put it in the slide, but what I'll do, I'll make sure this link is in the follow-up email. So if anyone's worried about scribbling the link down, don't worry, we'll put it in the follow-up email. So
yeah, if you prefer to sort of take your time to work through, as I say, the sessions, they take you through in a logical order on what is DTMethod and how you get the benefit out of it. And then I think the final slide is just some email address. If we can move to the next slide. just some links, contacts if anyone is interested. And I think we're getting close to the hour. So I think on everybody's behalf, Rafael, I'd like to sort of thank you very much for sharing the case study. I think actually hearing something in practice of how it's being used from someone that's been deeply involved in it is superb. It's an opportunity that very few people have to really understand what's going on from someone that's been present. So thank you for being able to do that and taking the trouble, getting your client to agree that you could actually share that with us. And very insightful, very thoughtful. So, thank you very much for that.
I hope it will happen soon. Thank you very much, Richard, for inviting me to co-create this webinar and being here was a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And many thanks to everybody that signed up to the webinar. Looking at the registrations before the event, I think 22 countries were represented, and it never fails to amaze me that the power of online technology these days allows you to reach out and reach to that sort of audience around the world. It really is amazing what we can do with technology these days. So thank you for sparing an hour and listening to myself and Rafael. I hope you got a lot out of it, and if you're not successful in the draw, clearly you can get access to these things by the normal commercial route. So thank you everybody for joining, and wherever you are, please have a pleasant rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.